Hello everyone, my name is Wenting Sun, a PhD candidate from the Department of Human Development and Family Science at the University of Missouri. So I was all set to be there in Poland in person, but let's just say the visa process didn't quite see eye to eye with my travel plans. However, thanks to the Emerging Adults on the Road to Maturity 2026 conference, I get to share my research with you online. So let's jump into it. My research study is titled I Feel Lost, Career Identity Exploration During Transition Out in Chinese Elite Sports System. Before discussing these athletes' transition out experience, it's important to understand that the environments in which these athletes growing up. The Chinese whole nation system, which we also call the CWNS, is a state-supported structure designed to identify, train, and develop elite athletes for national and international competitions. Athletes may enter through specialized sports schools or traditional schools with affiliated team, progressing through provincial or national training system. And for many athletes, sports become more than an activity. It structures their daily routines, social relationships, education, and future opportunities. Much of their development occurs in an environment where athletic performance is highly valued and reinforced continuously. So that raises an important question. How does growing up in such a highly structured environment shape the way athletes develop their sense of self and future career development directions? In China, around 500,000 athletes train within the CWNS, and yet less than 1% reach the national team. So as you can imagine, for most athletes, transitioning out of sport during their early 20s is common reality. Enrolling is particularly telling. Despite growing participation, fewer reach to the top level, and which leaves many young athletes to navigate new educational and career paths. Yet, we know surprisingly little about how they form career identity after sports, so we start by focusing on rowers as a starting point. We know that emerging adulthood is a key period of identity exploration and planning, filled with a sense of uncertainty, a feeling in between, but also a sense of hope and optimism about future roles. We also know that athletic identity strongly shapes how athletes adapt when sport ends, and that successful transitions require new roles. But there are still gaps. We know little about how career identities are reconstructed after elite sport, how early structured environments continue to shape post-sport identity, and how Chinese athletes navigate these within the state system. Therefore, our study explored how retired Chinese elite rowers experience career identity explorations with attention to early developmental context. I will keep this slide brief due to time, but we use Bronfenbrenner's bioecological system theory with the PVCD model and Arne's emerging adulthood perspective as the theoretical framework. So instead of seeing identity as a solo journey, we perceive it as a developmental outcome that emerge from ongoing interactions between an individual's personal characteristics and the coaches, the teammates, the immediate environment, and also the cultures and policy around them. So for Chinese elite athletes, these layers shape their athletic identity and the future outlooks. Once they transition out, they are developing career identities in contexts that feels totally different from what shaped them for years. So that's the tension we are exploring, how they build new career identity after a lifetime of structure. In this study, we explored three key questions. First, what challenges emerge during career identity exploration as athletes transition out of sport? Second, what kind of support or resources help facilitate that transition if there's any? And third, and this one is an especially interesting one, how do athletes actually construct their career pathways beyond elite sports? We interviewed 10 retired elite rowers in China. On average, they begin training at 14.5 years old and train for about 8.6 years. And when they transitioned out from the CWNS system, it was around the age 22. So we conducted semi-structured online interviews and used thematic analysis for 3 rounds to identify key themes and patterns. The findings were translated from Mandarin to English. As these athletes transitioned out, we saw a real sense of uncertainty that often defined this phase of life. They had little chance to explore. One rower told us, "For years, all I did was train, compete, eat, sleep. I never thought who I could be outside of this." They also struggle with a lack of skills or connections. One says once you leave the team, you have to keep up with life on your own, and that wasn't easy. Then there was what we called the "I don't know what to do" period. When they transition out from the system, initially they feel a great sense of relief. No more strict routines, no more 3 times training per day. But soon after, one shared, with training, meals, and daily structure gone, something felt missing. And finally, limited support, financial pressures, and lack of network left them unsure about how to explore new paths, even though they want to begin to explore. So their transition was marked by a lot of searching without clear footing at first. When athletes left that system, it's almost like they found 2 roads, one leading toward to higher education and another one toward to job. On the education path, it was often senior teammates who have already transitioned out from the system become the trusted guides. They share tips on university applications and what life after sport could look like. Then there were the athletes whose achievement helped provide more opportunities. If you make to the national championship or have an outstanding athletic performance, that becomes a network. People would reach out to you actively with opportunities. But we have to remember only a few reached that level. And then a handful spoke about a real formal program, like the professional program that helped them to reflect on future goals as future coach. Like, why do I want to be a coach and what's next? But honestly, these programs were few and far between. Like the resources provided by each province is quite different. And what this showed is that their career identity didn't grow in isolation. It was nurtured or limited by the relationships and opportunities around them. When athletes talk about building career beyond sports, many felt the weight of constraint. One committed that rowing was all I knew. When I left, I lost my salary, housing, and everything. At a time when hope should be growing, they often struggle to imagine other directions. Education sometimes opened the doors. One says university let me learn beyond sport, but we had fewer choice than other students. Yet it wasn't easy. They have to balance sport commitment and didn't always feel fully prepared. And it's going to be another story if we talk about applying universities in China as a student athlete. You have a fewer choice on major, and it's just quite different than normal students who get the education. Still, some choose to stay close to sport out of passion. Some say, I still love rowing. And coaching means I could pass my experience and passion on the next generation. And ultimately, it wasn't just about opportunity, like what opportunity exists. It was how they made sense of their experience and saw a future beyond a competition. So it's a really brief summary of the finding, but as we reflect on these, one thing stays with me is that by hearing athletes say, rowing was all I know, or when I left, I lost everything, I feel deeply personal and emotional because before coming to the US for higher education, I was also trained in Chinese elite sports system for 2 years. And I understand how much of your identity can become intertwined with sport within that culture and system. Today, we are talking about more than 500,000 athletes who are developing within the CWNS. For many of them, career identity exploration cannot be left to chance. Our findings suggest that consistent support remains limited, leaving many young athletes uncertain about what comes next. So as researchers, educators, coaches, and policymakers, our responsibility is not only to provide educational or career pathways, but also to create positive conditions and environments that foster confidence, optimism, and the belief that meaningful futures exist beyond sports. because the end of an athletic career should not be the end of possibility. To see me as a real life example, it should be the beginning of a new chapter. I think this is all I have for today, but this study isn't ending here. We plan to collect more data from retired athletes in other sports in China, and that will hopefully deepen our understanding of the transitional experience. Thank you, EA 2026, for this great opportunity to present my work, and thanks to my advisor, Dr. Stephen Krause, for all your support throughout this project. And thank you, audience, for listening to my work. For those of you who are attending the conference in person, just know that I'm totally jealous. I'm kidding, but I really hope you have a great time in Poland and enjoy the conference. If you have any questions or want to learn more about the study, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn using the QR code, or you can email me. My contact is included within the video instruction. Thank you so much.